Do you think these platforms were designed to be intentionally toxic? If you could create your own platform, what would it look like? You feel authenticity is the way out of that? Where are we going with this? What's the outcome? We know is I'm a human being. Are you? Or are you a human doer? Wow, man. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Breathing in the...
This is yeah, so you say you don't sauna too much. You sit in the sun.
I just don't have a place to sauna. They have them I was a member at a gym that had it, but I just never wanted to go in there when it was time to go in there because it was like, oh, I'm going to change out of my clothes or whatever.
When we met for the first time, it's really stuck in my, I don't even know if you remember. It might have just been like another day for you. But for me, just to tell everybody when we met the first time, I mean, I had already known about you and your content. But when we met the first time, I was going to an event.
You thought I wouldn't remember this?
I don't know.
What the hell?
Some people, they just,
Of course I remember. It's so weird that you thought I wouldn't. It was also so specific.
Yeah. So it was an African themed event. And so I got in this custom like outfit, like a suit jacket, some pants. But the pants, I think they were a little big or something.
I don't think you were wearing a shirt.
I was wearing a jacket. It was a shirt. It was a jacket, but no shirt underneath.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wasn't Beyonce there?
Beyonce, Jay-Z. It was like this huge event.
Yeah.
And you were, I don't know if we can talk about it. You were dating
I was dating
friend
a
of
guy.
mine. A guy. Yeah. I think we connected and you were just so compassionate and wanted to help me so that I get to this event in a.
Well, your pants didn't fit. What did you want?
They didn't fit. And I think you sold them or something.
We stopped at a gas station and got like a little sew kit.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't do much with, and you were wearing them.
Yeah.
So we were in the parking lot, and I was like trying to like cinch it to do a dart, and I was like, "This is the best I can do," and I was like, "Just don't move that much."
Yeah.
And it made it to the end of the night.
But
broke right at the end.
And I was like the best dressed there. And so I always remember.
Okay, turn up. Like Jay-Z's there. But
Yeah.
Did you see at the Grammys? I just saw this clip where like it showed Jay-Z and Beyonce, and he went to cheers her, and then she was like, "No," and he was just like he was like so embarrassed. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you believe in the Illuminati theories?
The Illuminati, I used to be obsessed with it.
Yeah. With them specifically though, or?
Oh, okay. So that's different, right? So my version of the Illuminati was like the government, before the government, right? Like they're above the government and they control everything. And I feel like celebrities and stuff, I don't know if they're powerful enough to get in the club. Maybe.
Celebrities?
Yeah, like
no,
Beyonce,
dude, absolutely.
Jay-Z.
Are you kidding? Celebrities are the rulers. Like, think about it. Like, who are you listening to? Are you listening to what like the representatives and senators are saying, or are you listening to what your favorite celebrity's saying?
But
they're puppets.
It's not the representatives and senators. They're not even at the level. Like the level that I'm talking about is like the behind the curtain.
That's Satan.
That's something. Yeah.
I have a theory.
What's your theory?
I think that all stories that have ever been written, I'm talking like fairy tales, dragons, like all of this stuff. All of those things happened at a different point in time. Like maybe even before the creation of our human race, right? Like before us, or maybe in between somewhere like before the flood of Genesis, like all of these things. What if there were dragons and princesses and all these things? I don't believe that it just came out of nowhere. Like all these cultures talk about dragons and there were no dragons. Like, no, come on.
There's something there. Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, this is why I got my degree in anthropology. So a lot of people don't know I went to school and I studied anthropology, which is the study of human culture across time and space, because I was fascinated with where we come from. And also, people don't know that. So the name Prince Ea comes from Sumerian mythology. So Sumer was the first, so they said the first civilization known to man. 6,000 years ago, they had the first written language. They created the wheel. They had the first political systems, agriculture. They had a lot of firsts, right? And if you would have asked one of the Sumerian people, how did you know all that? How did you have all of this technology, this understanding right out of the Stone Age? And they would have said, well, we didn't create any of this. We got it from our living gods. And then, back in the day, I was like, living gods? What are you talking about? Living gods? What is that? And they talked about these figures, these characters called the Nephilim. I think in the Bible it's
Well,
called
Nephilim are a type of angels, I believe.
the Anunnaki. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So the
Yeah.
Nephilim, those who from heaven come down, those who gave them this knowledge. And apparently a lot of our stories are based on like these angels, these creatures that gave us this knowledge, because a lot of the stories in the Bible come from Sumer, like the flood story comes from Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh, I think is what it's called.
I feel like a lot of cultures have their own version of the flood story, of the flood of Genesis, which is why I believe with full confidence that it actually happened.
That a flood happened.
Because everybody has their own story.
Yeah.
But if you read the Bible, it actually says, it acknowledges the existence of other gods. And it says, you shall not have gods before me. No strange gods before me. I am the Lord your God. Like, it makes it really clear. And then I always like, I read very like thoroughly and carefully. So like, are you familiar with Cain and Abel?
Yeah, of course.
So basically Cain kills Abel, right?
Yeah.
So then Cain is exiled to the land of Nod. And when he's talking to God, he's like, okay, but I'm scared because the other people are going to find out what I did and they're going to kill me. He's like, no, I'm going to put a mark on you, and everybody knows not to kill Cain. So it's like, well, who are those other people? Because Cain and Abel were the first children of Adam and Eve. So who are all these people who might kill Cain? Which I don't know the answer to that.
Interesting.
Like maybe there's other kids that like we don't know. But when I think about it in terms of like other civilizations and like God had a chosen people, which means there were other people. And then do you know the book of Enoch?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like removed from the Bible. But like what all happened in that time where God was like, I gotta wipe these people out. Like it's that bad. And I like this part where like when I first read it, God says like, I'm basically going to blot out everything that I've done. I'm sorry that I made them. It's like, wow, like God's sorry that he made us. And then I heard somebody else talking about it and they said like, no, he's like genuinely remorseful because he sees how much pain and suffering is happening. He's like, look what I've created. I'm sorry that I've like done this to you guys. Wipes them out, starts over with Noah. This one part that I just have been thinking about a lot lately is when, you know how he almost wiped us out again. Do you know this where he was talking to Moses? And he was like, so basically Moses brings the people out of Egypt. And he's like, God does all these miracles. And he's like, saves the people of Egypt, right? And he's like, just believe me. And they're like, we're thirsty. And we're like, okay, well, here's water like pouring out of the rocks. And like, we're hungry. And there's literally like bread falling from the sky. And he just shows them all these miracles. And the people are still just like not getting it. So before he could even get the 10 Commandments down Mount Sinai, the Egyptians had already built a false god and were worshiping it. So then Moses goes back up the hill and he's like, yo, God, we're so sorry, like whatever. And then God was like, I'm going to wipe you all out again. Like, I'm going to burn you all. And then Moses says to God, like, Lord, repent of this evil. Are you kidding me? And then God was like, you're right. And he repented. It's like, damn, like we almost got wiped out again. And God saved us by like the goodness of just him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow.
And now here we are. We still suck. We're so bad.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know. And I mean, I think we all have that redemption in us as well, you know.
Yeah.
For you, I know your story, you've been in the space of social media, of creation. You wear many hats. You're a poet, a singer, a dancer, an art, like so many different things. It's this beautiful being here to create. And I think creativity is that divine energy. And you really embody that. I want to ask you, so before we started talking, we spoke about the platforms and how I think you deleted
everything.
You deleted all your
I'm trying
Instagram
to work up the strength to actually delete.
Okay.
But I can't figure out if that's what I'm supposed to do or not. Specifically TikTok. Because I feel like TikTok is just like the cesspool, the worst of the worst.
So let me ask you this. Do you think these platforms were designed to be intentionally toxic? Or is it something that once people get on them, the toxicity is from us?
I mean, it's definitely us, but I think that certain platforms, I think specifically TikTok, and you never know the intention of a creator or like the intention of what was behind it. It's just about where is it going and what is being allowed, I think is more so it. Whereas like so much stuff is being pushed on TikTok that realistically could be controlled better, but it really is just up to us wanting to consume basically trash. Because what it did, and I feel like Andy Warhol kind of like predicted this, where he was like, everybody's gonna have their 15 minutes of fame.
Let me ask you this. This might be a tough question. You might need to take some days to figure it out. But if you could create your own platform, what would it look like?
Oh, I wouldn't even.
What would be the ideal platform for you to be on?
I don't think any of us were meant to be on a platform in that way. I don't think that any of us were meant to be like famous. I don't think any of us were supposed to have followers. Wow. I don't think any of us were supposed to idolize ourselves in that way. Because not only are we idolizing ourselves, but we're making ourselves false idols. Like if you're following me and you're copying me, like every moment you're looking at me and listening to me, you're not talking to God. You're not listening to God. You know what I mean? There's like a difference. We obviously like we're supposed to teach and grow and have fun and have joy and all these things.
There's a balance, right? You can be a mentor, a guide, but when you start getting into, I love you, you know, like it's dangerous grounds.
Yeah, when it comes to being famous, like what's your intention? Like even sometimes if I'm watching like a sermon or a spiritual podcast or something, and then like right before they get into the important part, by the way, I just dropped new merch. I'm like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, but it's okay to have merch and like we are supposed to, you know, work and make something that's valuable. But I think there's just a fine line. Like I just went to a church I'd never been to with a friend yesterday. And I was just like, oh, wow, this is demonic. And it's like one of the biggest churches in LA. And I'm like, this is just this person, half of the sermon was him selling himself and like making himself like the focus of it and throwing, you know what I mean? It's just, you can get so lost. And if you're
ego. Wow. Yeah. I want to play a game with you.
Fun.
Quick game. I'm in social. I've been doing it for so long. You've been doing social for so long. There's this thing that happens a lot. It's called imposter syndrome. And so I want to read to you some statements from people, and I want you to guess who they might be. Right?
Are they influencers?
They're based on they're celebrities, so you know them for sure. They're not influencers. They're like top 8, you know. Okay. Why would anyone want to see me again in a movie? I don't know how to act anyway.
Who would want to see me in a movie? Is it Jennifer Lawrence?
Meryl Streep.
Wow. She's one of the best actresses of all time.
All time.
Yeah, wow.
Here's the next one. I still feel sometimes that I'd like to be as good as so-and-so actor. I see some actors work and I'll never get there. I wish I could.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, best actor of all time. I love Tom Hanks. He's so good.
Here's the last one.
The Terminal, dude? Come on.
Oh, great film. Here's the last one. I've written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody, and they're going to find me out. What do you think said that?
J.K. Rowling.
Maya Angelou.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to ask you, do you face imposter syndrome or have you faced it? And if so, what advice would you give to people who are dealing with that?
Dude, yes, absolutely. Now that I look back and I'm like, oh, was it imposter syndrome or was it actually something inside of me saying that you actually don't deserve this because you are not the person you think you are kind of thing? But yeah, I think especially maybe like 2 or 3 years ago when I felt like I was kind of being uplifted and not knowing where I was supposed to go next, I still didn't feel any semblance of success. And I had to keep reminding myself, like, you've done all of these things. You've accumulated all of these things. What is it that's going to actually make you feel okay? And it was because everything that I had accumulated, I didn't feel like I deserved. It's like, oh, I placed here on this chart, but it's only because like I had YouTube followers. And it's like, oh, I placed here on this list, but it's only because I had YouTube followers. And it's like, well, why did I get those YouTube followers? But then I'm like, well, I didn't deserve it because there's so many people who are like, oh, it's just like dumb kids who are following you, which, you know, there's some validity to that. Like, not that they're dumb, but like it's easy to grab an impressionable audience, especially if you're like loud enough or different enough or quirky enough or whatever. So yeah, I definitely faced it. I think the advice would be, as long as you're working for something that genuinely matters and try to not lead with yourself and your fame and your glory, then there is no imposter syndrome. Because it's like, who are you working for? Yourself? You're going to die. So like, why are you working for yourself?
That's it. I feel the same way. I think it's really about disappearing into the act. Yeah. Into the service. Because we all, this body is temporary. Nobody's going to remember us in 100 years, 200 years. But when you can kind of disappear into the act, and realize it's not about you. It's to serve them. It's to help uplift. That helped me. And also, I think from the ego point, because that's the spirit, that's the being side. From the ego side, which I think is also important, make a list of your accomplishments and read them. Because it's so easy for the mind to go negative, like, oh, I've never done anything, I can't do. But when you see that list in the morning, I've actually, done this, I've achieved that. It could be anything. I tell people, write a list of 10 things you've accomplished and look at them every day. That can really, because a lot of people, I'm into spirituality and I'm about, dissolving the ego. But I think before we can dissolve the ego, some people might need an ego boost. They might need to get a confidence boost in who they are.
I think confidence is a better word for it, because ego is inherently, I feel like, destructive, no matter like where you slice it. And I think it's also like, what are your accomplishments that you're writing down? Because is it like, oh, I got these grades, or I got this award, or whatever it is? Or is it like, wow, like my family has this generational curse, like hoarding or whatever it is. And it's like, I broke that. It's like, I woke up today and like, I spent a long time organizing this space. And like, that's a really big accomplishment. So I think it's about that. You know what I mean?
The deep stuff.
Yeah. Redefine success. What is success to you? Is it money? Is it fame? At what point does that end? Is it a certain award you think you're going to get and all of a sudden it's going to feel better? Because probably not. It's going to be like, are you happy? It sounds so corny, but like, as somebody who had, and I mean, still can manage a lot, you know what I mean? That's not where the happiness comes from. The happiness came from when I was like, oh, this isn't actually at all what I want. I don't want the attention of all these people. I actually really prefer privacy and alone time. I don't like hustle culture. I don't like the grind. It's bad for you. It's really poisonous, actually.
100%.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
I feel good. It's a little hot.
It's a little warm.
It's a little
All
warm.
right, let's step out. We'll get some air. I'm sweating up the storm over here.
You're wildly sweaty.
Yeah, I told you, man. My dad gave me this genie. And I just, here I am.